Yo, what's going on, everybody? Randy here, Nerds Templar. No rush at all right now because we are currently waiting for the release of the new episode of Beyond Lumina. Episode 11, as you can see there, right there. Pursuit. If you're uh, up to date on the episodes, you probably know what the title refers to. Pretty obvious. Not just the title Beyond Lumina, but the episode title. Beyond Lumina, of course, for those of you who don't know, is a space fantasy story of our own making. What you heard there was actually the musical number, also made by yours truly, fashioned together quickly from a meta quest to uh, whatever you want to call it, experience or app called Virtuoso. Pretty fun thing to use to make some soundscapes, and so threw some together using that 10 to be exact, with the first 10 episodes of Beyond Lumina. And so those are what you have heard in the past episodes. You'll continue to hear them in the future episodes. uh, Unfortunately, I didn't make any new music. I was considering doing some more, but I didn't. Time constraints and what have you. So unfortunately, we have just a slight different iterations of the 10 musical tracks that we've been using. So yeah, that's what's to come. Probably again a 30 episodes. So again, Beyond Lumina. Lumina is again space fantasy. We're talking stellar story, an interstellar story. That's what you see behind there. Is the think of it as like as Lumina itself. Lumina is the star of the system, the of the star system. So yeah, that's where that comes from. What beyond means, who knows? Who knows? Uh, we will give a slight um, previously on Beyond Lumina, but that won't begin until probably about 9:15 or so, maybe. We'll do that because 9:30 is when the episode actually drops. We're just chilling here early for now, uh, just getting ready for it. Nothing, no, not really a huge deal. Just doing this for my, I guess, for my maybe my own vanity. I'm really just doing it because I can, and I've been doing the not really for my own vanity, but because I can, and because I was doing the live viewing of the first 10 episodes, because those were actually, I've been saying it was posted, they were posted a year ago. It's actually been 2 years since I posted those first 10 episodes. So it was definitely time to just redo those. So I did live viewings of those Wednesday and Saturday mornings. And that's what we're here doing. Again, continuing with the Wednesday and Saturday morning shows as we go into the new episodes, and we're going to be going. So what it is, I'll give a, I guess I can give a brief overview of not the story itself, but what, everything you kind of expect here is probably about 20. This episode's actually probably the longest one at 27, going on about 28 minutes there. Um, and I actually feel like I rushed through this faster than the other ones. The other ones are a slower pace, I believe, than this one is with the recording. So what it is an audio series. I would like to even make it into a podcast, so you don't have to watch it on YouTube. You can just listen to it on your phone or using whatever podcast app. I think it was I meant to do that back in the day, and maybe even started to do that, but you have to pay for the podcast subscription every month. So without people actually listening to it, I figured that wasn't worth it. Once people start listening to it, we'll probably do that again. It'd be great. I think that'd be a better way to enjoy it. But with this, you get you also get the text, because there's almost like watching and listening, closed captions, if you will. So you can read along with it as the story goes. I guess there's really no other benefit other than when you are watching live like this. If you're going to catch the live ones, you get all the AI generated artwork, which up here, which is actually for the most part not bad. There's some things here and there that would need changed, but I mean honestly, it's much better than I could do myself. So that's why we used it. Also, hopefully to just entice some actual artists to make their own artwork. It doesn't need to be like as detailed or as like realistic looking as the AI generated stuff, That's just what the AI always tends to generate. I also put in, what did I even put in? I put in 2D colored illustration, and that's what it kept giving me. So it's not like, it's not even what I would have considered real. I mean, it is, I guess, a detailed 2D colored illustration is what you see there. I guess I didn't specify what the medium of the colored illustration would be in the 2 dimensions. So it kind of just gave me everything. But yeah, don't you know, the Aezic is a little simpler than some of the other ones here. That's who that is, the main character of the story. If you're wondering about some of these guys, we'll be looking at their pictures a little closer here in a moment. In fact, we can probably, I'm not going to start again yet on given the previously on, and that's not going to be a full encapsulating thing as it usually is. I'm not going to go through the entire story, so we could do a another just general overview of the story. But the rest of what I was going to say about the, I guess like the rest of the whole thing is this is like a book. It's every episode's about 10 pages, is 10 pages at this point. It will be 10 pages every time on Google Docs, so a little longer than if it was just like a novel. So it gets about 25 minutes or so to get through the whole thing, me reading it. And yeah, so you can expect every episode 10 pages. We're looking at, hopefully, I'm thinking, well, not hopefully, but I'm thinking it's going to be about 30 episodes. So you can expect about a 300-page story read to you, basically, is what's happening here. That's basically what's happening to you. I'm reading it to you because I don't have other people to help with the narration, which would be fantastic if we had some other voices. Even they don't need to be professional ones, of course. If I could get, and you know, if I could tantalize some family or friends or something for maybe a remake, a remastered version of Beyond Lumina. Once it's all out, we could go through and just do the entire thing with me doing the narrating, you know, but then having a male, probably, hopefully, at least one male and female voice actor, if you will, doing the parts, so that it's not just me doing it. I think that'll boost the quality quite a lot. So that's one thing we're thinking about. But yeah, the story itself going swimmingly. I have plenty of other stories that are much more fleshed out, finished, and written than this even. This one though is the one that I wanted to start with on YouTube, just because I didn't want to use one of my already fashioned together stories. I kind of wanted to just throw something together to see, throw something at the wall, see if it would stick, kind of thing. So kind of started writing with a vague idea of where it was going to head, and as we wrote, you know, it fleshed itself out as stories tend to do. So at this point, especially after the 2-year break from writing, it was maybe about a 1 to 1.5 year break from writing the story itself, but maybe not even that long. I might even, you know, pop back in there at some point. This was actually written early with the rest of episode 1 to 10. I believe episode 11 and 12 were both already written back 2 years ago or so. So yeah, of course, updated, edited, and all that stuff. So we're now currently up to episode 20 with the writing process. But as I said, everything else is already outlined. It didn't start that way, but it's gone that way now. We already have, in fact, outlined 2 other books. Well, mainly one other one, and basically 2 other ones at this point, ready to go. The kind of what I'm shooting for now. I don't know when they would be released, of course, but perhaps shooting for a trilogy, I guess. But it's not really I don't know. Everyone's pretty much a standalone thing, you could say as well, but it's a continuation of the same story. There would also be other short stories that would happen in between and before and afterward, all that kind of stuff. Zario here, Zario Launer, one of the other main characters, he and his group probably going to write some story about their past. That'll probably be some of the short stories, perhaps one of the next things we write after this book is finished. But also the reason I was kind of trying to get the rest of this out and finished and just completed and done was so I could move on to doing some Wildlands, what I call Wildlands short stories for, I guess some like lore, something, some fluff to give to the Wildlands games that we're making here, board games. I guess you could say like TTRPGs, trading card game, all kinds of different games, other board games, that is. So kind of wanted to get this out of the way so I could do some of that stuff, and that's like for even a younger age than this. This is kind of like 13 plus age range, I would say, mostly because of the how detailed the story is, how much there is going on. It can get a little, it might get a little. I mean, that's kind of the draw of it. I would hope is that it's mysterious and there's a lot of things happening that's trying to boggle your mind as we go, and see if you, like Aezic, can try to keep all the pieces together as you fortunately don't have to deal with what he's dealing with. And I'm going to give a very brief, now that we're at 9, 11 actually, I'm going to start giving a brief overview of the beginning of the story, which isn't the previously on here, but I will because of that. Turn on the spoilers here. Let's go. Spoiler time. Let me move that down there. That's out of the way of all the other stuff. It's also going to help in a moment. Actually, no, I'm going to move it up here because these guys are all going to turn off all these faces here. So we're going to see those guys in a moment. All right, so basically here is what's happening. For everybody who hasn't watched the story and might just be hanging out here for some reason. Anyway, I'm glad that I didn't put this on the person below that, because you met her already. Okay, Aezic, Lieutenant Aezic Zin, leader of the Free World Alliance. He is, well, not leader of the Free World Alliance, lieutenant of the Free World Alliance. Going back to his home of Ravina, dealing with some headaches, dealing with some foggy memory. Going back on leave, though, realizes once he gets there that his home's been attacked by one of the other 3 major powers of the star system, known as the Royal Ascendancy. Again, he's from the Free World Alliance. Alliance, Ascendancy. Sorry if that's a little confusing to A's there, but that's 2 of them. And then there's also the Tansorian Federation. That's the 3rd of the 3 major powers in the system of Lumina. Went on planet looking for his family, runs into Sergeant Vala Rees, who is concerned, along with her superior, for his well-being and his health, because of what he just doesn't look good when he gets there by himself, traveling around on this world that was just attacked and also ravaged quite badly by this Royal Ascendancy. After no luck finding his family with the help of Vala and her superior, we'll see in a bit, he then runs into Zario Launer and his crew. First, just him and Valent there is one of his, just under him subordinates, if you will. He being a lieutenant and he being a sergeant, I suppose. And so, I guess that's what we're going with. But he was actually, they were all faking it. They led Aezic to a bunker in the northern part of the place where they met a fake captain of Ravina, the world, not the Free World Alliance per se, but the world's military, the Ravinian world's military, which Aezic is also part of, but he's more working for the Free World Alliance, which is mostly what ends up happening with a lot of the like planetary military guys. A lot of them just get co-opted, I guess you could say, into the larger major power military of the Free World Alliance. So Zario, Valent, and his other subordinate, Bohawk there, along with their subordinates, Quaz, Filony, these are Hawk's subordinates, namely Filony and Usion, and then Valent's subordinates, Mecca and Argyle. They, along with Aezic, all go to an outpost. They infiltrated. They then go to an asteroid to infiltrate that, and not Vala, everybody but her. She's out of the picture. Aezic's betrayed by them. They are in turn betrayed by the fake Ravinians, who are actually the Ascendancy, who betrays them. And then they all have to together make it off of the asteroid outpost. They do so. They go to a different place to ditch the Ravinian ship that they stole to get off of the outpost. I'm sorry, not the Ravinian ship, the Ascendancy ship. Get off. They go to an independent world, which isn't aligned necessarily with any of the major powers, but it's also a world that has space technology, advanced space technology, known as Ob. They get a ship from there. They ditch the Ascendancy one, and then they leave. They go to a big Alliance world where Aezic then leaves them because, you know, it's not like they're friends. Excuse me, got something in my throat. He then runs into Vala Reeds again there on this world of Sotama, big world. Just so happens to run into her because she was sent by her superior. Again, here he is finally, Sergeant Major Ty Ravim, to keep tabs on Aezic because he was suspected of treason, perhaps, by the Free World Alliance. His other subordinate, Vala's equal-ish Master Sergeant Maloon, not necessarily equal with Vala then. Also, you know, just doing some things here and there. She actually went to the asteroid outpost after everything was done there with Aezic, Zario, and the rest of the crew, and they found some escape pods, in fact, of some of the what were supposed to be by the reader the escape pods from the Ravinian or from the Ascendancy ship that Aezic and the rest had stolen to get off. I met a couple times, boss, and you haven't heard his name yet, Benta, his sergeant there, his superior, talking. They are Saurian soldiers of the Tansorian Federation. A lot of different things happening there. They, in fact, the Tansorian Federation, one of their worlds, known as Metezkar, is attacked by the Ascendancy with something called a super ion weapon, which is banned throughout the entire system by all the was banned by all the powers, but lo and behold, the Ascendancy is now equipped to use them, and basically destroys an entire world that was one of the major sources of food for the Tansorian Federation, causing havoc and great loss of life and all sorts of other bad things. And so they, whoever was left to even flee has now fled, and they're trying to make it to the other Tansorian Federation worlds. Whenever they left Sotama, after Aezic is on Sotama, meets up with Vala, and whenever they're then together, he is then while they're together, he then realizes as well as Vala that he is wanted for treason. There's an actual bounty then posted by the Free World Alliance for him. They need to then make it off of the world, and now we're kind of getting into, I would say that we can just call this the actual kind of previously on. At this point, now we're getting into it. This is about episode 6 or so, where they were then fleeing Sotama. They were found by the Free World Alliance before they were able to get off world with a ship that Vala found for them somehow to get off. But then they were saved at the last minute by Zario and crew on the Obian ship, the ship from Ob, which is the independent world that they took it from. Not the greatest of ships, but it runs, and it picked them up, got them off the planet, but it did get shot then by a defense tower from the ground, doing major damage to the ship, causing it to basically drift through space, empty space, until it would eventually run out of energy to support life, and they would all just basically then drift to their doom. That they being everybody, Aezic, Vala, both picked up by then Zario, Valanth. Hawk, however, is not there anymore. He was in fact lost on the asteroid outpost at the time when they were all betrayed. He was on the ship, watching the ship whenever all of that nonsense happened, so they don't know where he is in Mecca, and Valanth would like to go back and find him, as well as Filony and Usion, but they're a little more willing to, in this case, listen to what Zario, their leader, has to say, because Zario is interested in remaining with Aezic because he thinks that something big is going on, and he thinks that they need to, perhaps they're already caught up in the middle of it, and they need to be careful, one, and they also should probably make some good allies, such as Aezic, because he also seems to be caught up in the middle of something, that whatever's happening. And they also, Zario, of course, knows more than what the reader knows from this story. Zario being the leader of the mercenaries who had betrayed Aezic, so he was already in on whatever was happening on Ravina. Zario's already in on it. He told Aezic, with the little that he does know, at least, that he actually knows. Everything else is just speculation from him. But he worked with as a mercenary with not just the ascendancy, but also, as he said to Mecca whenever she was having a fit. And we also then realized that they were siblings, brother and sister. And then she stormed off because she wants to find Hawk, and Zaryo says, let's stay with Aezic, basically. And she doesn't care for Aezic or Vala. Neither does Argyle, who just basically does whatever Mecca does. And Valanth also doesn't care for them very much. So yeah, that's all what was happening there. But they were then all together on the ship, drifting to their doom when they were finally at the last, not the last moment, but they were saved when all hope seemed to be lost by random salvagers on a even worse looking ship than the one they were on, from a world known as Kostia. The I guess the guy captaining the ship, the salvage ship, Foderglaus, is a religious guy from this religious type of planet. Not all of them are, of this like religious sect, but he is one of those, along with this voter Blem, who so Glaus takes them back to their world. They actually go to the main structure temple area of this world of these folk, and we sort of kind of take everything in. Pretty crazy area. It's in fact the closest world to Kostia, so they are 9:22. Just watching the time. Yeah, we're like right on time, I'd say. So they're actually the whole world is a underground cave network, because it's the only way they could live on Kostia. It's too close to Lumina, the star, to live any other way. Live on the outside. So that's where they're at, and so everything's hewn from the stone, from the ground itself, including this massive temple where both the men and the women of this religious order, the main temple on the world where they live, but there's of course other ones scattered about. And so we met Blem, who was not very happy at all that Foderglaus brought Outlanders to the temple. He told them he was going to bring it up with their superior. Afterward, Clarence, they meet her, and she then also expresses her concern to Foderglaus about there being Outlanders, and they both mentioned some fellow named Drop, who seemed to be somebody who they didn't want to displease. And then eventually, the rest, they're kind of, Aezic and the crew, they're sort of all wandering around the world, eating some gross food. It's almost all that they're given. Aezic goes and finds some mushrooms. Vala is having some kind of experience or something moment in the temple, and she then goes and she ends up talking to Tlarans about things, and Tlarans sort of reveals a lot of their, not a lot, but kind of the general beliefs that they hold there to her, trying to just I guess teach her a little bit, which in fact is forbidden for them to do, the Kostians to do with any Outlanders. They're not allowed to talk about their beliefs. It's a deal, sort of, you could call it, I guess, that they made with the Royal Ascendancy, whom they're under. They are an Ascendancy world, even though they're kind of, they're shunned by them. They're seen as outcasts of the Ascendancy, but they are still under the Ascendancy boot. And so they aren't allowed to spread their beliefs, and it's very obvious whenever they do, because their beliefs aren't anywhere else in the system. They're just in this world, and so if they're heard anywhere else, the Ascendancy will know what happened, and they won't be very happy. And so that's why everyone is so concerned that these Outlanders are now not just on Kostia, which is okay enough if somebody just happens to land in Kostia and has to do their thing. Which is why everyone, when they do land there, is very wary of them. But then they're not just taken to a religious site and taught things about their beliefs, but they're taken to the main temple of worship. So that's a lot of bad stuff for them, and so they're kind of worried. Glaus feels like he's been called to initiate something. So this is the head of the order who's not at all happy about what's happening. He reprimands Glaus, puts him in timeout, basically. There is Drop, though, who does then arrive after a bunch of, after the crew wanders around for a bit, Mecca, Argyle, and Balanth actually go back to the ship. They don't want anything to do with the Kostians, Vala, Aezic, none of it. So they're back there. In fact, they just want to go find Hawk, and they do so. They leave everybody else as soon as their Obian ship is repaired, and they're out. They leave. And kind of luckily, they do so because they're gone whenever the Ascendancy does come. Officer Drop, the leader of them, that come to Kostia there, seeking Glaus, seeking the Outlanders who they know somehow are there. There's his subordinates, Crag and Nail. And not in lieu of finding, nice, great timing, 9:26. We're going to be just in time at 9:30 to start the episode as soon as it'll drop on YouTube. Awesome. So basically, last episode, they were hidden. Drop and the others, each of his subordinates, everyone that came with him, all his officers or all his soldiers, he had take one prisoner each from the civilians of Kostia on the street. They then took them out, basically just out into space. Drop contacted his superiors, came back then soon for Photoglaus, the one and responsible for all of this, and also the Outlanders if they could find them, but they are still not sure where they are. Abo Abila up there is not sure where they are either, even though he would love to get rid of them. Corporal Dodd's there. That's Master Sergeant Maloon's subordinate. They're actually off now on a mission themselves for Sergeant Ravin. They're going to try to find, if they can, Vala without giving up her position, because she hasn't been able to contact her superior, Master Ravin, or Sergeant Major Ravin, for a while now, and so he's concerned. He sends Maloon and her subordinate Corporal Dodds out after her. While they're on Kostia, Aezic meets Rini. They kind of have a thing, but they're totally kind of different. So they kind of don't speak very much, but still. Whenever they go back after all the things happen and they're about to go off world, they're going to get some more mushrooms. That's where she's in a mushroom grove. That's like the best food that they have on Kostia. They go back, realize Rini and everyone is distraught. Rini most of all, because her father was one of the ones taken by Drop, and so she's even more angry at Aezic, calls him a savage and everything because of their wars and stuff that they bring to that they just all are always a part of, these major powers and whatnot. So then he's like, whatever, and he leaves with everybody, and he doesn't want to try to help them, even though everyone else is kind of like, yeah, we should probably help these guys. Eventually then, once Drop does come back with all the prisoners, Rini goes and finds Aezic and the rest and implores them to help and go rescue the others, even though she called them savages. They do decide to go help. They then pose as pirates to do so, stow away on the ship, but find the right time to come out, and this is just Aezic, Vala, and Zario. Incapacitate Drop and his two subordinates so they don't recognize them, even though they're in the pirate garb. They take the ship while the Kostians are still in prison. They try to I guess that's all that happened. They incapacitate them, and then they go see the Kostians, and then Photoglass is super happy to realize that they are not alone, and Aezic, Zario, and Vala have come to their rescue. Glaus, who had been found then by Drop and the Kostians. So that, my friends, is where we begin episode 11. How about that? Perfect timing. Let's go! Yeah, without further ado, Beyond Lumina, episode 11. Beyond Lumina, episode 11, Pursuit. You're telling me that you let 3 pirates overpower you, and you call yourselves Ascendancy soldiers? Drop verbally cut down his subordinates after he came to and found they had been imprisoned on their own vessel. What pirates are so menacing to you that you would just surrender the ship to them? The Ascendancy soldiers had escaped the bonds in which Aezic and the others put them, but they were still trapped inside the room. It's the Fireblade pirates, said one of the soldiers, the same one who had spoken to the group when they attacked the bridge. The who? Drop asked, not recognizing the name at all. Led by Madame Fireblade, the soldier continued. They're extremely well armed. We didn't have a chance, sir. And now they have our weapons as well, Drop said angrily. And perhaps you're lucky that they do, or I'd kill you myself. We need to find a way out of here, and retake the ship, or we are doomed. The Ascendancy will not comply with any of their demands. We had to disguise ourselves to keep Drop and his men from recognizing us, or tying this attack back to Kostia, Aezic told Photoglass, after seeing his amused and quizzical look. Their pirate disguises were good enough that it took Glaus a moment to recognize Aezic when he came through the door. That's quite ingenious, the Photo said with a slight smile. What is your plan now? You'll all have to stay here a little while longer, Aezic now spoke to the whole group of Kostians. We are going to do what we can to convince their commanders that we are after the ship and are holding their soldiers hostage until we're safe. It shouldn't take much more to convince them that we don't care who the others are on board, and that we plan to get rid of you as quickly as the soldiers. After that, we should be able to get safely back to Kostia. We are very grateful for your help, Glaus replied. We're just returning your favor, Aezic answered, withholding further comments. When Aezic returned to the bridge, Vala had successfully disabled the ship's tracker and masked the signature, effectively hiding it from the Ascendancy. She had just begun to set a new course for them. Zario had gone off to make sure they had not missed any of the enemy crew. Good, Aezic said. Get ready. Now that we dropped off their systems, their superiors will be contacting us. Sure enough, the ship's comms were opened and an irritated voice rang through the room. Drop, what is going on? Why have we lost your location? Drop is currently indisposed, Vala replied, with her best pirate impression. To whom am I speaking? You fool, came the response. Do you realize you've hijacked an Ascendancy military vessel? Of course, Vala said. You don't exactly keep your identity a secret. I am Madame Fireblade, and I plan on taking this fine ship for myself. No harm will come to your crew as long as you leave us alone. You can have them back once we're safely out of your space. I don't have the patience for games, the Ascendancy superior answered. Who are you really? You are assisting the Kostians, aren't you? So that's who the others on board are, Vala said, trying to sound ambivalent. We don't care about them either. Don't pursue us, and you can have them back too. You act as though you know who you deal with, the voice returned. But you don't seem to know that we will not negotiate with pirates. And unfortunately for you, we were awaiting the arrival of your ship and watching you closely. We will find you shortly, and we are not opposed to destroying our own vessel to keep it out of the hands of pirates. Vala looked at the others with concern. So, what's plan B? Zario returned just in time to hear the question. The ship is clear. What's happening? We just got off comms with Drop's commander. The Ascendancy is coming for us, and it sounds like they're close. We need to get rid of these soldiers, Aezic answered, and get as far away from here in Kostia as possible for now. Simple, Zario said. Just cut off the atmosphere to the room, and let's go. You're that comfortable with killing all those defenseless soldiers? Aezic asked him, surprised. He, however, remembered Zario's orders to his crew back on Ravina, at the outpost in Animov. I'm not comfortable with it, but if it's between that or stopping somewhere and risking the Ascendancy catching us, Zario answered, then I'm at least willing. There's a better way of doing this, Aezic retorted. We're not resorting to the same tactics as these people. And how do you plan on getting them off the ship? Zario pressed Aezic. Did you think they would just be guided politely out of that room? We can handle a handful of these grunts, Aezic said. Or I'll do it myself if you aren't going to help. You're insane, Zario conceded. Those guys wouldn't hesitate to put you down. Exactly, Aezic replied. Why would you want to act like them? After finally giving in, Aezic explained how they might onboard the captive soldiers without them seeing Zario or himself, by knocking them out by altering the environment within the room, but they would wait until they were nearing a place to drop them off. In the meantime, the trio did their best to choose a direction they thought would put distance between them and the pursuing Ascendancy ship. Private Kvass of the Sor military gazed around the city square of his home, Ridikin, a modestly sized city for the planet. He was off duty, currently enjoying a special Saurian beverage at his favorite shop that overlooked the central market of Ridikin. The city itself was quite contemporary, being primarily fashioned out of synth metal. Sor was mostly flat and drier than many other inhabited planets in Lumina's system, but the ancient civilizations there had built near what elevated and wet land they could find, and those foundations were where the current cities now stood. Ridikin was one of those cities, and remained its humble size even when newer cities continued to expand. The people who lived in Ridikin also held on to their more ancient traditions. Private Kvass himself was from a family whose past in that city went back further than memory could recall. The Saurian people, while coming together in recent centuries, had always remained within distinct groups around the planet, as the vast majority tended to remain within their own region's boundaries. Despite their cultural distinctions, all of the people of Sor valued the past, attributed sometimes to their ability to see, in some areas of the world, the true physical foundations of their people. Kvass was one who took great pride in his heritage, whether others did or not. While coming from one of the older families, they were nevertheless not always respected. They in fact first appear on the scene of history due to their infamy. In an ancient war that was since amended, one of his ancestors was placed in charge of a dire mission to bring supplies and reinforcements to his allies. Not only had he failed in that task, but he and his battalion, some of whom were his relatives, turned on their own people and instead aided the enemy, bringing a disastrous conclusion to the war. After that, his ancestors who remained in Ridikin were shunned, kept from public life. But slowly, they began to make amends for the evils perpetrated by their traitors' family members. They labored in many different fields, but eventually found metalworking an area where they could best give back to their people. It began with several of his ancestors helping the local metalworker and doing such a fine job that a generation later they were able to open and run twice as many shops. While they never competed, Kvass's relatives eventually began to split from the business run by the primary metalworker's descendants, though the split was never a complete one, as the two families grew close over the years, and eventually merged so much that there now existed a subset of relatives that the two families shared, and these remain the primary owners of the now vast metalworking facilities of Ridikin in Kvass's own day. It has now been a while since Kvass's family began to regain their place in Ridikin society. When that started, many began to once more pursue a variety of other professions, from entertaining to exploring, even politics and diplomacy for a few. They remained wary, however, of rejoining the ranks of the military, even after the cities had come together to defend Sor from new extraterrestrial forces. Kvass believed, though, that there must be much more to their ancestors' military history than what was remembered. He imagined a glorious history preceding the fall of those relatives, whose treason overshadowed all that had been accomplished before them. He didn't know, but he was often convinced that it must be the case. His own family was a family of architects, who worked rather closely with the metalworkers, but once Kvass was old enough, he chose to enter the military, the first of his family to join since that fateful time ages before, while he had only just begun to understand what it meant to be a soldier. He knew that he could not let his family or his people down. As he gazed out into the crowded marketplace, with all of the new and traumatized faces of the refugees of Metezkar, he was reminded that he now had others he must call his own and protect. A while passed since the Ascendancy officer had contacted the ship that Aezic, Zario, and Vala had taken over. They hadn't gone back to the Kostian hostages, in case the Ascendancy soldiers in the other room would be alerted to their movements and become suspicious of their motives. But Aezic felt that by now, they should have been able to lose the pursuing Ascendancy ship, and now began searching for a suitable place to leave the prisoners. "We're not too far from Brunio," Vala commented, as she looked at the navigation terminal. "That might be a good spot." Brunio was an enormous, gaseous planet, but it had 3 moons, simply known to the major powers as Bru, Ni, and Al. They were all inhabited and classified as independent worlds, which had reached some form of advanced space technology. and thus had communication with at least one of the major powers. In the case of Brunil, they had dealings to some extent with all three powers, and welcomed them on planet. Good, Aezic replied. We'll be able to drop them wherever we want there, and should get away without much hassle. While considered to have advanced space technology, even some inherited from the major powers, the Brunilian moons, like other independent worlds, were not equipped to easily deal with something like the Ascendancy frigate that Aezic and the others occupied. Once arriving in Brunil's local space, Zario quickly made for the closest of the moons, Ni. Soon though, just before Aezic was going to knock out the captured Ascendancy soldiers, Vala, who was seated at the nav terminal, started an alarm. It can't be. They're coming almost straight at us, off port. Our sensors are picking them up now. It's a battleship. They must have guessed our destination, Aezic tried to think coolly. Just get us out of here, Zario. We should be able to outrun them. Don't have to tell me twice, Zario said, kicking the ship's throttle into top speed, and veering right to gain distance from the pursuers. But the enemy ship had been making too direct a course toward them. It's no good, they're in range, Vala nearly shouted. Keep going, Aezic ordered. Then he ran to the engineering terminal, flipped some switches, then quickly ran out from the bridge. The ship's shields activated. Wait, where are you? That's just great, Zario said, refocusing his attention on escaping. Aezic ran down the ship's corridors until he reached the room where the Kostian citizens were, and swung the door open. Glass and the others were startled. Aezic, what's the matter? He asked, after seeing some concern on the lieutenant's face. The Ascendancy found us, Aezic began. People all began to panic. Everyone needs to come with me to the bridge immediately. Come on, Glass said. You heard him. The voter waited until the other 8 citizens, 4 women, 3 elderly men, and a boy, made their way out before he finally followed. As they passed the room with the Ascendancy soldiers, Aezic could hear one demanding to know what was happening. Their questions were answered soon by a blast that shook the ship. Again, the Kostian citizens began to panic. Let's go, Aezic shouted over them. Follow me. They soon made it to the bridge, where Zario and Vala were almost just as shaken up as the Kostians. What do we do, Zin? Zario implored. Aezic, Vala now spoke. They're sending fighters. Aezic was about to answer, then one of his headaches hit him hard. He then thought for a moment he was having a flashback, but without any idea as to what he was flashing back to. Once he recomposed himself, he began. Do any of you have any experience on a ship? I know you do, Glaus. I'll need you here. One of the old men spoke up. Yes, I used to fly one of the salvage ships. Good, Aezic replied. Take Zario's place on the helm. Keep us going directly away from the Ascendancy ship as fast as we can go. And you, he pointed to one of the women, take Vala's station and watch the monitor. Make sure we stay right in front of their ship. Boater, take the engineering station and follow Vala's instructions. He then turned to Vala. You'll need to help him keep the ship intact if we are fired on. I trust you have enough experience to do that. Zario and I are going to get on the guns, but you need to be here in case they try to contact Madame Fireblade. Oh, okay, Vala said with some hesitation. Got it. I can do this. Alright, let's go, Aezic said to Zario. Wait, came another voice. It was the Kostian boy. I want to come. I can help. Have you ever seen a weapon before now, kid? Aezic asked him. He knew there were more guns, though, and more people on them would certainly help. No, he quietly answered. But I want to help. I need to help. Aezic looked at the boy curiously. He's different from the others, he thought. Fine, but you need to listen to everything I say. Yes, sir, the boy said with a bit more confidence now. What's your name? Aezic then asked him. It's Artis, sir. Well, I'm happy to fight by your side, Artis, Aezic replied. And call me Aezic, and this is Zario. Now let's go. Aezic, Zario, and the young Kostian boy, Artis, then set off down another corridor, and soon came to 2 coves, one on the left and one on the right, each with a ladder leading up and down. Zario went down to the left and Aezic went up to the right, and motioned to Artis to go below him. Each of the spots were wired to communicate with the rest. The weapon system was relatively simple, so Aezic ran Artis through the basics, but then they soon ran out of time to prepare, as 8 fighters rushed toward them. Get ready, Aezic said, focusing. Remember to breathe, and don't tense up. Artis was feeling a mixture of nearly every emotion he ever had, from fear and anxiety, to excitement and anticipation, to guilt. He wasn't sure what was wrong with him. This isn't how a Kostian is supposed to feel, he thought. We are supposed to be peaceful, but why then, Omnis, are you asking me to do this? Before he got an answer, he was thrown back to reality by a hail of plasma fire from the team of fighters. He had missed their initial run. Hey, Aezic shouted, don't freeze up on me already, kid. I'm not, Artis yelled back, and he recommitted himself, turning in the weapons array for the next attack. For my people, he thought again, I can do it. The fighters came back around after making their first run, but one had already been blown to pieces by Aezic. The remaining 7 came 3 from one side and 4 from another on their second attack run from the bow of the frigate. Again, Aezic connected, sending one of the enemies spiraling back toward the enemy battleship. Zario too landed a good hit, blowing up a fighter's energy capacitor. Artis did not come close. They're so fast, was all his mind could comprehend before they were out of his range. The last 5 fighters coalesced once more behind their ship, then together ascended above the frigate. Watch out, Zin, Zario warned. I don't think they like you. I see them, Aezic said, trying to track the group that seemed to be gunning for him. You might want to get out of there, Zario said again nervously. The fighters spread their ranks into a V formation and fired on Aezic's weapons array. He was able to take out the lead fighter before a few blasts connected with his system. The others heard him cry out in pain. Aezic, Zario shouted with a tone of concern. I'm fine, came the reply, to his and Artis's relief. The array's fried, though, moving to the other. He deftly slid down the ladder, then stopped, addressing the Kostian boy. Don't worry, he reassured him. You can do this. He then crossed over the corridor and climbed the other ladder into the other weapons array above Zario. Artis didn't know it, but all the blood seemed to have drained from his face. He saw that the attack on Aezic had pierced through his synth plate and charred his left arm and shoulder. He was deathly afraid now, but he had no time to think about what was happening, because the last 4 fighters had now split ranks and were firing on them at will. He shot wildly at one of the fighters that passed by him, but again missed completely. He couldn't keep his hands steady. Zario took several shots at the remaining fighters as they passed by, and was finally successful in disabling one enough that it too had to return to the battleship, leaving 3 enemies. But then one of the fighters landed a devastating blow to the ship. Oh, that can't be good, Zario said worriedly, as the ship reacted violently. By then, Aezic had made it to the other weapons array, and took out the fighter that had made contact with their frigate. One of the last 2 turned back toward the battleship, but Zario blasted it on its retreat. The last fighter was heading straight for Artis. Look sharp, kid, Aezic yelled. He's coming for you. Artis knew that. He tensed, but then tried to do what Aezic said. The fighter approached rapidly. His plasma fire sprayed all around Artis, nearly connecting with his weapon. He took a deep, shaky breath, then closed his eyes and fired away at the fighter. Then there was silence, soon broken by Aezic. You did it. Not bad, kid. Vala's extensive training in the New World Alliance military had hardly prepared her for a scenario such as this. She was nowhere near the rank to be commanding a ship. As the leader of a fighter squad, she hadn't even been part of a bridge crew yet, other than the little she had done with Aezic. Her officer training at least gave her knowledge on all the roles on the bridge. Boater, she started, once Aezic and the others left. Get ready to work the shields. Right, Glass answered, and studied the engineering console's visual display a little while, which showed the shield's power, strength, and coverage. The enemy fighters flew past the bridge's viewport at blinding speed, raining plasma fire on them, then came around for their second attack run. Now aimed toward the bridge, Vala had Glass pull shield power toward the bow of the ship. With no one on the bridge's weapons, they weren't able to fire on the fighters themselves. The system was so vastly updated from the old Ascendancy models he was used to that it was more foreign than Glass imagined it would be, and it was all he could do to localize the shield toward the front of their vessel. Again, the fighters screamed past without doing much damage. As Vala watched them from the nav terminal, she then ordered Glass to transfer the shield to the top of the ship. Aezic and the others are making short work of them, Vala thought. But Glass was unable to figure out how to move the shield. It had been one thing to switch from full coverage to partial coverage, but it had begun by shielding the bow. Glass looked at Vala sorrowfully. I don't know what to do. Just then, plasma fire from the fighters connected with the ship, setting the other Kostian civilians off balance and into another fright. Hurry, Vala told him. Turn it back to full coverage of the ship. Glass began to do as she said, but before the shield could react, another blast rocked their frigate, this time sounding as though it had done some serious damage. And the shield's set now, Glass confirmed. I'm sorry. It's all right, Vala reassured him. You did what you could. Soon the remaining fighters were defeated, and the people on the bridge breathed a sigh of relief, along with Aezic, Zario, and Artis on the weapons. I think we made it, Vala said, as they continued to gain distance from the Ascendancy battleship. Moments later, Aezic and the others came through the bridge door. They didn't look as relieved as they should have. Aezic, your arm, Vala started upon seeing Aezic's injury. It's not that bad. Are any of you ship mechanics? He asked everyone on the bridge. I know a little from salvaging, Photoglass answered. Follow me, hurry, Aezic replied. Glass, now worried once more, followed Aezic and Zario quickly back out from the bridge. Turning down a few corridors, they finally came to the source of the concern. It was the energy capacitor. Photoglass looked at it for a short time, then his face became grave. We need to get off the ship as soon as possible, he told the others, then pointed to what was a large, sparking tube running above the corridor. It's beyond repair. This ship has a dual system. This is the coupling running to this side of the ship, but the system is destroyed over here. This coupling is going to keep trying to feed the broken system and overload it. Then the energy capacitor will explode, along with the rest of the ship. Are you kidding? Zario blurted out. Is there anything you can do to put it off? Aezic asked. Can we disable the coupling? It would take resetting the entire capacitor, which would require a full stop, Glass said. The Ascendancy would surely catch us in the meantime. But it might be our only choice. I can make a few repairs to hold off the inevitable for a little longer, but that's all it will be doing. Do it, Aezic told him. Zario, help him with whatever he needs. Sure, Zario said. I certainly don't have anything better to do. Aezic went back to the bridge and relayed the update, after Artis had already given them the initial news. The Kostians began to panic, all but Artis. Aezic tried to bring order. Please, this isn't helping. We're going to get out of this. He looked at the nav array and tried to plot a new course to the closest planet that still kept them away from the battleship. They weren't too far from the next planet, but it was a pre-space age world, a world that hadn't yet had contact with any space-age civilizations. The closest civilized planet was not very close at all, but they didn't have any other choice. Okay, Aezic began again. Give us a slight turn starboard. We're heading for Kithmir. A Federation planet? Vala asked, stunned. And won't the Ascendancy guess where we're going again? There's nothing we can do about it, Aezic answered. Hopefully the Ascendancy doesn't suspect we're disabled, and they'll call off the chase. And hopefully the Federation doesn't immediately fire on us. Hope was all they could do. Hope the Ascendancy turned around. Hope the Tansorian Federation would give them a chance. And hope the Glass's patch job would hold long enough. It was a lot more hoping than Aezic was used to. Something is going on out there, I tell you, Drop said to the rest of his crew, trapped in a storage room on their own ship. He was near the door and was listening to the sound of footsteps rushing past them down the corridor. Hey, he yelled, let us out of here, you pirate scum. You're only making things worse for yourselves. Just then, the ship was shaken by a heavy blast. Drop spun around and stared wide-eyed, as though he could see their attackers through the ship's hull. We're out of time. They're here. The captured Ascendancy soldiers could hear much of the fight that took place against the fighters, including the hit to the energy capacitor. But they were surprised when the firefight ceased and the ship was still in one piece. Could they have actually won, leader? One of the soldiers asked. No, Drop replied. No, they would have only made him angry. Very angry. Those pirates are doomed. Aezic, Zario, Vala, and the Kostians tore through space as fast as the Ascendancy frigate would take them, trying to make their way to the Federation planet of Kithmir. Vala patched up Aezic as best she could, and they were making a good heading. Aezic began to think they might actually be able to get there, but whether or not the Federation would let them land was another story. He hoped Kithmir would be more lenient than Tan or Sor, the Federation's core worlds. Just as hope began growing inside him, there was a crashing noise, and the engineering monitor began violently blinking red. The repairs aren't holding, Glass cried out. I don't know how much longer the capacitor will last. Aezic rushed back over to the nav array. This deity of yours exists, he thought. He doesn't seem to care much about you. Aezic looked at the console, searching for somewhere else, anywhere else, that they could land. Then he shouted to the old Kostian at the helm. Hard to starboard, now! Change of course! Where are we going? Vala asked. She was shaken up, but she was conscious of the fact that she was less afraid now than when they were drifting through space on the Avian ship. Inigon, Aezic answered. We have no other choice. In that is that. Episode 11. It's been a while, but the first new episode in a bit. For those of you who were sent here after listening to music, I don't really know what to tell you. I guess maybe that just means my music is just that good. Or, I don't know, maybe you are into Pokemon or something else that we do here on the channel. Then maybe it just sent you here. That's pretty much the only other thing we do here. There's nothing in my tags that says anything about music, I don't think. So yeah, that's a little funny, a little interesting, whatever. Glad you popped in, I guess, anyway, and ended up chatting. Yeah, usually don't get anybody for these. My Pokemon streams are the actual draw, I suppose, at the moment. But hey, someday, some of you people out there are gonna give the story a chance, and you'll see. Also takes the right kind of person. I know we're dealing with a lot of vastly woke population here, so kind of also got to get around that. But that's kind of just to be expected. Someday, as we go, more and more traditionally minded, good folk will come together, and that's what this is all about here on this channel. So yeah, Beyond Lumina, though, that's our first story posted here, at least. And that's, yeah, episode 11. The first 10 were a while, 2 years ago, and the rest are pretty much ready to go. Well, at least I have the next 20 ready to go, or the next 10 ready to go, I should say. Out of 30 total, will be 20 done, or 20 are done. We're going to have all of it done in time to just keep going. Wednesday, Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Well, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday and Saturday is when the videos themselves are released. So it's already been released. It's been out for a half hour or so. But this, of course, is our live viewing of that. And we're probably going to start that stream at 9 a.m. So about a half hour before the video drops. We'll just chill, talk about stuff a little bit, and then we're going to chill afterward like this as well. And just give, I guess, like a brief rundown of what happened, because why not? So yeah, again, I mean, yeah, it's something for you folks in the future who care about the story, care about Beyond Lumina. I know there will be some of you someday Same with all the board games and the trading card games, the things that we'll be making here. I got people in real life they're of course interested, so we just gotta yeah, get it out there to the world. Um, Apparently Amazon self-publishing is a pretty easy way to go about doing things like that. So who knows? Who knows? Anyway, uh, so where are we at right now after episode 11? Well, we got Aezic, the wanted man, both of Free World Alliance and the Royal Ascendancy. Basically, I mean, they've been gunning for him too, obviously, ever since the beginning. And now the Free World Alliance is after him for treason. Vala with them as well. Now everyone together, basically. Well, not anymore. So I guess that was a couple episodes ago. Everybody was together. Now we got Aezic, Vala, and Zario posed as pirates on this ship, Ascendancy ship. That was Drop's ship. Drop is still on the ship down here. The leader of the officer of the Ascendancy, known as Leader Drop. There he is. He and his subordinates, Crag and Nail, and the rest of the Ascendancy soldiers are all imprisoned on their own ship, which has been taken over by the fake pirates. But I mean, technically, I guess they are being pirates. they did take the ship. So, yeah, that would be Aezic, Vala, and Zario. And they, of course, did that so they could save the Kostians, including Cloderglaus, their own savior, in a sense, that when they were drifting through Obian space, or drifting through space on the Obian ship, which was then repaired in the last episode or the episode before that, and was gone then from Kostia, the world of that Cloderglaus is from, along with his other religious members of that order, Cloder Blem, Sauter Tlarans, but they're not, and the leader of the order, Abu Abila there, but they're not all those religious folk. There was also Rini. She was mentioned. Oh, actually, it must have been episode 9 and 10 heavily. I don't think 8, maybe 8, 9, and 10 perhaps. She was involved in that, but she's of course still on Kostia, along with the other people of the order, Abila, Talarans, Blem. But Rini hanging out currently with Philony and Usion, who remain behind on Kostia, awaiting the return of Aezic, Zario, and Vala as they go to rescue the others. It couldn't all go. It would be a little too much for all 5 of them to go, so they just went with the 3. Rini helped them to get aboard the ship secretly, and so they kind of were helping to protect her at first. Now they, being new on Kostia, being visitors and not knowing many people, Rini's sort of hosting them, if you will, at this point. We'll get more on that in the future, of course. So there's them. Hawk still MIA. Could even be deceased. Nobody knows. Vala, and that's everybody except Valenth, Mecca, and Argyle, who have taken the Obian ship after it was repaired on Kostia and have gone back to try to find Hawk, who was lost in the local space of Ravina whenever they betrayed Aezic back in episode 3, I want to say 3. So he's been gone for a while. They've been wanting to go back for a while. Finally, they got their chance, and they just said whatever. Zario and others were leaving, and so they did that. So that's where they are, and I guess that's everyone. Ravim still back on Ravina. He's one of the men in charge currently on Ravina after the Free World Alliance went to give them aid after the attack from the Ascendancy. The Alliance being the major power that governs Ravina. Sent military might their way. Sergeant Major Ravim, one of those men, and of course his subordinates would be Master Sergeant Maloon and Sergeant Bala Rees, who was also given the task by Ravim of tracking Aezic way back before he was even officially wanted. But that's where everybody is, and Maloon is now actually going after Vala because Ravim hasn't heard from her for a while, so that's kind of where she's at, somewhere there. And I believe down here, way down here, was her subordinate, Corporal Dodds. He's with her as well. The two of them going to try to find Vala without blowing her cover, just to make sure everything is going okay. Make sure, yeah, make sure she's still on mission. Make sure she's still safe enough. All that stuff. So, and then you did get to hear a little bit more about Private Kvass there. You still didn't necessarily meet Sergeant Benta, although he's been in the story. He's reprimanded Kvass a few times in their little short, back and forth, a few episodes in prior episodes. Kvass, though, he was the one, of course, hanging out on the Saurian, in the Saurian city, the world of Sor, in the city of Ridikin, his home city, chilling with a beverage on just off duty at that moment. Yeah, and I think that's everybody, right? Yeah. Oh, and of course, one more though. We finally got a new character into the story. A new character has arrived. We got number 23, young artist. There he is. That's the Kostian boy, who was actually captured by one of the Ascendancy soldiers whenever Drop had all his men do that back on Kostia. He was the one boy. There were, what was it, 4 elderly men, or three women, or 4 women, 3 elderly men, and Artis here, the one young boy. That's him. That's the young boy that was taken. That's him. And he, even though the Kostians have never fought certainly in his short lifetime, but even the life of like old Abila up here doesn't even know a time, can't recall any time when the Kostians were anything but extremely passive. Every Kostian. So this was very strange. Aezic picked up on that immediately. That's why he asked about have you ever even seen a weapon before, kid? Because you Kostians don't even have weapons. You don't even have a military. You have nothing at all. You're afraid because you see us walking around with our plasma pistols. So that was his thing. But Artis is like something ominous. His deity that they talk to. He says he's telling him to go fight. So even though that's the exact opposite of what Kostians do, that's what he feels like he's being told to do, and so he goes and does it. He does maybe a poor job at it, but he does his best, best he can for being a young Kostian lad. And hey, he makes it out. He takes out one of the fighters, and they are able to, of course, get away for the time being from that Ascendancy battleship. That's it. We'll meet somebody else coming up, probably. So yeah, that's that. That's that. Like I said, episode 12, Saturday morning. This is a twice a week. What do you call it? I was gonna use the word you use for like when a film gets released. Twice a week. I don't know. Whatever. We release them twice a week. Saturday, Wednesday mornings, 9:30 a.m. is when the video gets released. 9 a.m. on those days is when we start this stream to do our own premiere. I know that YouTube has its own way of like doing a live premiere whenever videos go live, but I don't know exactly how that works. This works just fine in my opinion, so we're gonna just continue to do it this way. But yeah, until then, guys, you can catch me in the Pokemon streams on either Friday evening, my only evening stream, Friday evening at 6:30 p.m., the only planned one at least. Friday, 6:30 p.m. We do big Pokemon collection, TCG collection stream, and we also do a small one shorter one on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Everything's usually 9 a.m. Eastern for the streams. And we also do random trading card game stuff on Thursday morning, tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we will be doing, in fact, tomorrow it'll be some Disney Lorcana, which is what we mainly do. We also do Yu-Gi-Oh! Also next week probably is going to be some new Union Arena, a new TCG coming out. Going to check out some Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War cards. So that's going to hopefully be next Thursday if the booster box comes by then. that's all the streams, except, oh yeah, and then also Monday mornings. The only other Sunday we don't stream. Every morning we're here, except Friday we're in the evening, and then every other morning other than Sunday, it's in the every other day other than Sunday, it's in the mornings. Mondays we do TCG Live, Pokemon Trading Card Game Live, which is an online app or game, whatever you want to call it, on the phone or on the computer, which is where we play it, and we'll do that. But yeah, anyway, guys, thanks for chilling. I'll hopefully catch you in episode 12, or maybe even one of those other streams. Until then, though, again, Saturday, 9 a.m. I'll catch you then. I'm Randy, and this is Nerds Templar. Peace, and God bless you.